Welcome to the Multipurpose Room, a podcast helping school organizations and school administrations achieve their goals. Each episode discusses real-life topics that PTAs, PTOs, and school staff are dealing with. Our hosts and guests offer practical tips, learnings, and best practices to achieve their desired outcomes. And here are your hosts, Wesley and Deborah Jones.
We are wired to love to play games. Think back to infancy. You likely don't remember your first game, but I can bet that someone played peekaboo with you at a very early age. As parents, we even turn feeding time into games, whether it's Cheerio counting or airplanes into the mouth. As we grow up, games are present on the playground, in classes, and most certainly in extracurricular activities. It's no wonder that as adults, we continue on with adult game nights and fantasy football. As PTA or PTO leaders, or even as teachers, we love to engage our students and communities with various types of learning games and social games. I think we love these types of activities because at our core, we are social beings who crave interaction, and the games provide a perfect setting for that engagement and interaction. Well, when the whole pandemic hit, these social beings had to get a little less in person, and we had to reinvent how we were gaming in many ways. But we still found opportunities to bring games into the center of our social interactions. I know that for myself and Wes over the last year, one of the ways that we've had a good time with games is by doing some scavenger hunts. And so we are super excited to have guests on our show today from a company called GooseChase that focuses on scavenger hunts and partners with a lot of PTAs, PTOs, and schools to share those scavenger hunts with students and communities alike. Joe and Eric, thanks so much for joining us here today. We're excited to have you. Why don't you guys introduce yourselves and tell us a bit about your background?
Hey, Deborah. Hey there, Wes. Very happy and excited to be on the pod and chatting a bit about GooseChase and just ways people can have some fun using the platform. But absolutely to kick it off and get started. A bit about my background personally. My name is Joe Denemy. I'm on the sales team here at GooseChase, and I'm actually friends with a couple of the founders that founded GooseChase back over 10 years ago in university. So I've been, aware of GooseChase for a long time, really following the trajectory of the company and how they started getting into all different kinds of events and types of groups that we work with. And then I got the opportunity to come on board just a little over a year ago. So I'm really responsible for the education side of our business. I talk a lot with K-12 teachers, principals, STEM coordinators, higher ed universities and colleges as well, just helping them create some really fun ideas for their events, help their students learn and have some fun on campus or together. And I'm really targeted around making sure that we're helping those groups as much as we can create some amazing and special events that showcase their creativity and have some fun. So that's the main part of what I'm responsible for here at GooseChase. And Eric is our head of marketing, who I'll throw it to now, who has a lot of great insight into some of our customer stories.
As Joe mentioned, I'm the head of marketing at GooseChase. I started about 2 or up to almost 3 years now. I was working in marketing down in Nicaragua at a travel company where I actually met the founder and CEO of GooseChase, Andrew, who came by and actually ran a GooseChase. And that was when we started talking about the platform. I had some suggestions for him after the game, and we just started talking about, I was looking for sort of a career change at that point. He needed a marketing guy, so I got on, and it sort of just, everything meshed with a bit of my past experience. I think it started all the way back in college. I was back in Alberta, Canada, where I'm from. We called it a residence assistant. I think Joe over in Ontario, you guys call it like a Don, or I'm not sure what it is in the States, but basically the guy who in the residence would be helping students move in, helping students with anything they need, but as well as organizing scavenger hunt events like this. Back in the dark ages, before we had GooseChase, so we were doing it on paper. So that's where I think I initially kind of brought on some experience to help out with that. And now I take care of basically all our written content, everything you see on the blog, our FAQ, once you dig into the platform, and helping out with our product side as well. Basically just to make sure that people can arrive at the platform and they would, for one, know what to do, and they are filled with great ideas for where they can take their scavenger hunt.
Well, welcome to both of you. And, having worked with both of you over the last few months, I can tell that your background will be very valuable to our listeners, both in terms of your interactions with the K through 12 space, but also just generally around scavenger hunts. Eric, you mentioned the old days where everything was in paper. And I imagine that there was a light bulb moment where somebody said, there's got to be an app for that. And then there wasn't. And so that's probably how the company was created, but that's just my idea. Tell us a little more. Maybe, Eric, you can start with how was the company founded?
Yeah, it's and that's actually it's great you mentioned that, Deborah, because that's actually how we discover how a lot of clients reach us right now, right? They're thinking, hey, I want to run a scavenger hunt. I've got this piece of paper and a pen. It was actually started out of Andrew, our CEO and founder, he was still a student at the University of Waterloo. He was running this company just basically out of the dorm room. And it was the same thing I mentioned, running, helping Dons and helping RAs run residence events. That was kind of where the idea first got started. But Waterloo's sort of known as a startup hub in Canada. So as the idea kind of gained traction, he started seeing, companies start wanting to use GooseChase for team building in that way. And to be honest, the way that we discover use of our platform kind of has stayed constant in that we don't really try that hard to aim at a segment of the market. We sort of discover it as clients use our platform to adapt to a new use case, and if that use case is successful, we start seeing ways to scale it. That's when we'll start putting it on all the material on the website and start trying to help out additional clients in that way. And EDU started sort of the same way. Again, this is before my time, so Andrew might comment in on the podcast at the end is like, okay, Eric, you got it all wrong. But this is as much as I pieced it together. EDU sort of started the same way, and it involved somebody to really just take it all the way through. Our CEO at the time, Phil Everson, was his sister is actually a teacher, and he was very interested in taking this use case. For him, it was all about getting students out of seats. And he really kind of built the education segment of the business from the ground up, from the alterations that they had to do to the platform to make it usable for teachers, the pricing structure that we had to shift around. And he was the guy that was on the ground at conferences. To be honest, if any of your listeners have heard of GooseChase before this podcast, they probably interacted with Phil in some way, and not to mention he would actually code some of the stuff on the platform as well. And so a lot of the education segment of the business is built on systems that he put in place. I will mention that Phil, unfortunately, was taken away from us at a young age. He passed away at the end of last year, but we tried to keep it going, and a lot of the business is, we'll find customers that come up for renewal, and we're like, okay, who is this person? And right, Phil signed them 4 years ago, and they're still going with us, right? So for us, as you said, it started with that initial kick of teachers discovering, all right, this is a cool app I can use in the classroom, and then Phil really championed this use case and built it into one of our largest market segments right now.
Sorry to hear about Phil, and it's great that his idea gets to live on and is such a fabric of the organization.
Absolutely, and yeah, Deborah, it's working with teachers every day. Phil is was the most passionate about, to Eric's point, getting students up out of their seats and learning and giving them those incredible learning opportunities and fun in the classroom, and making the classroom fun was one of his passions. So we build a platform and offer it up and try to help teachers do that every day. So it's great that the teachers are some of the most passionate people that we speak with every day, and so was Phil. So it was a great connection from the start, and we try to continue that in a great way for them.
And for schools who decide to use the platform, can you tell us a little bit about how games go? How do they log in and set up, the types of questions that schools typically use, and maybe even some tips that they use during play?
For sure. And schools use us in so many different ways. Like I mentioned, there's obviously that in-class learning component, building really fun events around science-based games, math-based games, art-based games. We have a lot of schools that will use us for teacher training, onboarding, professional development, and fundraising as well. So really, the way we build the platform, Wes, is giving teachers and educators and whoever might be using it the opportunity to completely customize their game to meet their goals and to meet their event needs. So to answer your questions about how that works, really you're able to log on to our website, goosechase.com, start building your own custom event. So that could be, a traditional scavenger hunt where you're going and finding items. It could also be just something that's looking to engage people, create a sense of community, get some fun content, photos and videos generated. So the way it works is you go onto our website, start building your own custom game. We also have a number of missions, which are the tasks that players have to complete within the game that are already pre-built. So they can choose from missions that we've already created, do something completely custom. With our educator accounts as well, we do have something called our EDU game library, which are pre-built games that teachers have actually built, used in their classrooms already, and have now given us access to share with our educator network. So in terms of getting logged in and set up, it's pretty easy and simple to do, and a really fun experience as well. So you can do something completely custom, use what we've built, and get started there. In terms of the way the gameplay will then work, players will download our mobile app on their iOS or Android device, and then they can join the game as either an individual or a team. So a lot of games that are being run right now with schools or different groups, they're having it be an individual-based game in the sense that players will all complete as a team of one, submit for missions, earn points, or there's the option to have them play as a team, even remotely. So you can have people play on a team, download the app to their own device, but then still be playing remotely and essentially tag team what that looks like. So it's great for remote events. You feel like you're connecting with classmates or teammates, even though you're not, unfortunately right now able to be physically together. So, that's kind of the overview of what the game process would look like. And then types of questions, Wes, as well. We have 4 different mission types that you can create within the game. They can be photo-based missions, video-based missions, text-based missions, or GPS check-in missions. So within that framework, again, really your creativity is the limit on the types of missions.
That's a great overview, and I can attest to the fact that it's pretty easy to get in and set up because I have actually been an admin on a game before, as you both know, and it is very straightforward. The game library that Joe mentioned is very useful to find not only specific questions to use, but also just ideas of ways to frame questions. And so I wanted to get into some of the use cases in a little more detail for our listeners who are really looking for those practical tips to really start up a game tomorrow or the next day. How do they do that? So let's start. You mentioned a teacher in a classroom. Let's say they're doing a year in review. Maybe they're at the midway point in their school year, as is the case right now, and they want to see what their students have learned in 2020 and what has stuck with them, what they need to spend more time on for the rest of the year. The teacher would log in, and then what kinds of questions would you recommend for this type of a use case?
For sure. It's a great question. And I think, overarching what I would always recommend in terms of types of questions and missions are anything to make it fun, right? Anything to bring that subject matter to life. So in this specific use case that you mentioned, it's just kind of a mid-year review, trying to do a bit of a refresher, but it can still be fun. So, in this case, the types of questions that I might recommend would be, things that kind of bring back those topics or subjects that have already been discussed, but use some real life engagement examples to make that information and that knowledge stick a little more, right? Too many times we're stuck, reading things from a textbook, and that might not be the way that everyone learns, or that might not be the thing that makes that idea stick or give you, a passion for that idea. So it could be a situation where maybe you had a science learning module early September, early in the year, and you haven't really touched on it since. Maybe it was about plants and sunlight and how they grow. For a young group in a science class. So you might want to do something where you have a mission in the GooseChase game where they have to find plants in their backyard or in the local trail, since they'll all be learning from home. And then the mission might be take a photo of this, link out to a research article that you read about it, or maybe do a little write up in the submission as well. The top 3 things that you learned about this type of plant, or why it grows the way that it does, or why it looks the way that it does. So things that just bring that subject matter to life. It might not be something brand new that you haven't talked about before, but it's just approaching it in a different way. And especially talking with teachers every day like I do, they're looking for that new way to get that information across to kids, right? No one learns the same way. They might have done the textbook or the Zoom meetings probably at this point throughout the year pretty frequently. So this is a great way just to mix it up, have some fun.
I love those suggestions. I also, as we were preparing for this podcast, was thinking about, the geolocation tool and how, especially if you're learning about local history, you could do some check-ins on, historical places, whether it's town hall or whatever the case may be, but it's something that you can do in a distanced format, but leverage the different types of questions that you guys have. So I really liked your examples, though, of the photos outside or videos. What about doing a single subject? You mentioned science. Do you see teachers doing science only, or do you see them doing a number of different subjects in one kind of omnibus scavenger hunt?
It's a great question, and I see both, right? And it's really about the creativity of the teacher. Oftentimes it's subject-based, so it would be a single subject. That could be a specific component of that subject, so maybe it's not, the science semester as a whole, but it might be specific about plants, or it might be more of a biology component. Maybe it's something that's more related to chemistry. So you can have those quick games that might last a couple of weeks while you're going through that content to hammer home the knowledge that they're trying to get out there, and also make it fun and unique and a little different every time. We also have teachers that use one GooseChase game that lasts the full year for specific subjects. So they might release new missions into the GooseChase game based on what the subjects they're going to be touching on that week are, or the specific pieces that they're touching on that week are. So really, the way we build the platform, or the way that Andrew and our great product team has built the platform, is to make it flexible for you to think about, as a teacher or whoever will be building the game, what's the best format, what's the best experience for me, and customize it to get to those goals of what you're trying to do within the game. So there's no one right way to do it at all, with the exception of make sure it's fun and engaging for the kids that are playing.
And you mentioned that teachers have flexibility of when they leave the game open for. How long do you typically see them participating in these games? How is it usually a month? Is it usually a semester? What is kind of the average that you've been seeing?
Yeah, great question. And usually with teachers in class, it's about a couple of weeks. So I would say most teachers use it for, that stretch of time where they're going to be talking about specific subjects. So it is a great opportunity to create a game that is relative to the content that you're going to be discussing in class. And it's a great way to mix it up, again, throughout the year. So that is what I would say we see a lot of. But at the same time, we might have teachers that do, a 1 hour pop quiz in GooseChase form. That is really fun. That doesn't feel like a test, but is again, getting across the information that they need to get across. And kids don't even think they're learning. They think they're just having fun. So there's no one right way to do it. There are some best practices, regardless of the length of time that the game would be lasting, having different types of missions, in terms of the mission types that I discussed, having different mission difficulties as well. So some that are nice and easy to complete if the kids are, at home on their couch, some that they might need to travel to a historical location to borrow, like you mentioned. So there's, some things that I would definitely recommend for the group in terms of that. But again, you can have some games that last an hour that are fast-paced, lightning round type games, which are really exciting, and then some more sustained learning games throughout the year. So it's all about testing it out with the platform, and your kids having fun, and then finding out what the right fit would be for you and your class.
So I wanted to pull on a thread that you just let dangle there, which is there are some best practices for creating engaging games and types of questions. How many of each type of question to create an engaging game?
For sure. And Eric, jump in. Eric's the guy that, writes all of our best practice articles, and he's got a lot of great information. In terms of what I would say about the number of missions that you would have within the game, really what I would always say is have more than you think they can complete in the allotted time. If it's a pure engagement game, and that does a couple of things. So one, it gives, something for everyone. There might be some students that are extroverted and are really excited about posting a video of themselves. There might be some that are more introverted. There might be some that are close by to those locations in town and be easy to get to. There might be some that live outside of the city that might be a little tougher. So having enough missions in the game provides something for everyone, really allows them to play the game in a way that is fun and adds value for them. At the same time, as a part of GooseChase, we always have our live leaderboard in the game. So when students complete missions, they'll earn points towards their score or their team score on the leaderboard. And that's always a fun little bit of competition, friendly competition in the game. So with more missions than they can complete in the allotted time frame for the game, that's going to create some natural separation on the leaderboard. You're not going to have every team tie in first place. And then at the end of the day as well, if they're having a great time, you don't want them to run out of things to do. Right? If they want to keep playing and learning, that's a huge opportunity and a huge positive. So we want to give them the option to do that. But Eric, jump in if you have any thoughts on a non-educational basis.
I'll add in that, I mean, of course, like just preface all of this with, it depends on your use case, right? We have teachers who use it just for, like, let's say the text missions to essentially use that as a quiz platform. A little boring in my mind, but, you know, if we're talking about a game where you really want to get everyone engaged, get everyone up out of their seats, get everyone involved in active learning, a variety of what I'd suggest, right? You want stuff where they are creating a 10-second video, they're pitching you an idea they have for, let's say, this is an economics class and they're learning about a new business idea, and you know, you can have a little mock Dragon's Den interview. If it's something like for someone in a younger grade and you want them to get outside and find you an example of a deciduous leaf versus a coniferous leaf, something like that. Basically, like, the difference from GooseChase and being something, a quiz, a pen and paper quiz, is that GooseChase encourages people to go out and move around and be active. And our go-to line is always get people up and out of their seats. And I'm sure there's a lot of students right now stuck on the computer. They can now take their learning in a mobile way and go out and explore the world around them in addition to learning about the subject matter. Something I'll add too is that Joe touched on the leaderboard, and as much as GooseChase is about taking your phone out and finding and submitting the submission, there's also a community aspect to it, with each submission that gets submitted gets added to the activity feed. So as other students are seeing what you're putting on, they're getting ideas how they want to creatively solve the challenges. As Joe mentioned, like, there's always difference of extroverted or introverted people. The introverted people might be seeing the footage come up, and now they're encouraged, like, okay, wow, somebody has gone out and made this great video. I can do this too, right? That's typically an underrated feature that I found, but being able to really craft your missions around getting visual activity going on so that everybody watching it gets an experience out of it.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. The leaderboard and kids being able to see what other kids are doing. So inspiring ideas, but also inspiring some competition. And then the teacher being able to comment, right? So the teacher can take a look and say, thank you for your submission, or others can comment on each other's submission. So, you know, creative idea. And frankly, you could create some missions that you get allotted some points for commenting on others' submissions, thereby really fueling that engagement and getting classmates to lift each other up, and you really get a great outcome. So you've got that competition, but also that collaboration and partnership and engagement, which I love about the platform.
Absolutely. And to Eric's point, you know, that sense of community, the energy that is created within the game is part of what makes it, special and different. So to your point, the game organizers themselves can comment on player submissions as they come through. They can add in bonus points as well for teams and players going above and beyond. So, you know, if you ask just for a simple video of yourself in quarantine, juggling toilet paper and singing a song, you know, that's a remote mission that we've had some people have some fun with. You might want to add some bonus points if they really went above and beyond and included their family or, you know, brought in some of their friends. So there's a lot of ways that you as the game organizer, whether you're a teacher or whatever your role is, can help to foster that energy and excitement within the game. In terms of your earlier point as well, Deborah, so with players right now, they're only able to like other submissions within the game. They're not able to comment on other submissions just yet. We're looking at potentially adding in that functionality. But we've had groups do some really cool things as well, where the like feature essentially becomes upvoted in the games itself. So we would have, you know, some classes that did, you know, a Halloween costume contest in the GooseChase game, and the most liked submission for the costume would win a prize. So there's some fun ways that you can encourage that engagement and that interaction between players and teams within the game.
Joe, you previously mentioned quizzes. This is much cooler than any quiz I ever received in school. Do you find that teachers are grading missions, or are they just reviewing material?
Yeah, it's a bit of both. So we have some that are really just using it to bring, you know, the subject matter to life. We have some that are using it as, like Eric said, if they're a component of text-based missions, they might be using that towards their ultimate mark. It might be participation marks, whether it's in K-12 or higher ed. So if you do, take the time to play the game, perhaps outside of school hours, you might get some bonus marks or participation marks. So really it's up to the teachers themselves to figure out what the best way to incent kids to do it is. And what we've seen as well, it is number one, fun and entertaining and educational. So it doesn't necessarily need to be something where it's going to be specifically marked or this game is specifically going to contribute to your grade. It's just a way to build off of what everyone is learning about. When that potential test does happen, they're excited about the material. They've probably learned more than they would have just reading it in a textbook. And then that's going to translate as well to a better grade for them actually when the time comes.
I'll add on to that and just hop back a little bit to best practices here. And I'll say that, adding things like adding bonus points and adding a comment for, why it's awarded. It's a huge component to getting engagement in the game from the organizers. So I highly encourage teachers to, when they're running, don't just create your missions and let it run. Like definitely interact with students, especially if you're doing this remotely. For each bonus point you award and every comment you add, they actually get a notification on their phone. So, they kind of get this, even if you're remote and distant, they kind of get this feeling that, okay, somebody is looking at this, I'm getting praise for what I created. And that just snowballs into getting everybody, more into it. They're more involved and they want to, keep creating great footage for the game. And that goes back to activity feed. The other students are seeing it. And then now everybody's more engaged and energized.
That makes a lot of sense. Speaking of getting people engaged, another use case you mentioned was the getting to know each other use case, which, you described at university when you first move into a dorm, but also in the school element for sports teams, for example, or a new class. These are different types of questions. If you think about the use case we were just talking about, those were facts. You could look them up. You could go out and take a picture of the plant. Getting to know each other, you don't know the other people, so you may not have those facts readily available. How are the questions different? And when do you recommend teams use this getting to know each other activity? At what point in the year?
No, it's a great question. And in terms of, when to use it, it's really, any time throughout the season or the school year, anytime where you think you need to foster that connection with the players or the students. So, as a sports team, as an example, to Eric's point, building missions that encourage some of that great content to start flowing within the activity feed. So if this is a new grade 9 sports team, you may not know people, you may have gone to different grade schools, maybe you're posting a video introducing yourself. If it's a hockey team, what are you like as a hockey player? What do you bring to the team in a quick 15-second video, right? If it's something more personal, take a pic of yourself with your, training set up in your basement. If you have, a net and some sticks and some pucks down there. So ways that you can kind of have some fun, encourage everyone to work towards that common team goal, whether it's practice, whether it's meshing as a team, but having that kind of done through the activity feed is a really powerful way to encourage that positive connection, even though they might be remote right now as well. So in terms of different things that we've seen sports teams do, definitely those, early season, get to know you type of events. Right now, during quarantine as well, we've seen a lot of sports teams do health and wellness focused games themselves. Gyms are probably shut down. Maybe they're not able to practice right now. So they've had missions that are targeted around teaching them exercises they can do in a small space in their home that they don't need, ice or a field or a pitch to do. So kind of using the game to, in a positive way, create that groupthink where you're still working towards your goals, whether it's exercising, whether it's working on certain skills, and kind of not losing that time that otherwise could be doing something else that's not as productive. So a lot of different things that you can do, but really just great to build that engagement in the game and get everyone working towards the same goal, depending on what that is for you.
That makes a lot of sense. So hitting the last use case that I wanted to make sure we talked about for our listeners is where PTAs or PTOs are using this to fundraise, and maybe they're having trouble envisioning, how do you make money on these games? Charging a admission fee, if you will, a user fee makes a lot of sense. That's pretty straightforward, but you guys have some creative ideas for other ways to fundraise around these games. So I'd love to hear a little more about that.
I can take this one, Joe. One of the biggest ways that for fundraisers that we've seen is that you can actually reach out to your local community, local businesses, cafes. Obviously, this is not the perfect time for that, but you would be able to reach out to local businesses, restaurants, cafes, any local stores. If it's, let's say, a hockey team, you can reach out to the local hockey shop, and you can actually get them to sponsor your game. So now this does two things. This gets, I'm fully in marketing mode right now, so I'll I'll just see how well I can adapt this to the audience. But what this does is it exposes the sponsors to an audience who are playing the game, but at the same time, the prizes incentivize the players to really go all out, and justifies kind of the fee that they would pay for the game. And you're able to take a portion of that and use it for fundraising and put that toward some of it that's toward prizing, and some of that towards donating to a charity or to a cause of your choice.
And I'm sure you guys have seen thousands of games played. So, out of all of the games that you've seen in your history of working with Goose Chase, what is your favorite question?
It's a great question. It's a tough question because we've seen so many different types of groups that have used this before in all different types of industries, schools, use cases. So we've seen so many fun things throughout my time here at GooseChase anyway. In terms of a K-12 school, something that was really cool that I saw towards the end of last year was actually using GooseChase as a virtual yearbook or a virtual graduation type event. So obviously, and unfortunately, at the end of last year, some schools had to close. The senior class didn't get the opportunity to have a prom. So we had a lot of schools that were having missions that focused on people sharing memories, posting photos of them in their prom dress that they would have worn, having them put their grad quote in a text-based mission in the game itself. It was a really fun way to make the best out of a tough situation, but still have that communal experience in the game itself, have people connect and kind of celebrate the time that they did spend at school. So that was something that was really great to see. And then we have all different types of games. We have a really cool international skateboard game that's happening right now. And one of the missions is go down on your board and flap your wings like a goose and honk while you're doing it. So, selfishly for GooseChase, that's something really, really cool that's going on right now that, again, just shows the type of fun that you can have with an event that's good.
Eric, I hope you're doing some marketing around that.
Oh, absolutely. I will have all that video footage. I'll add to that, and some of the best missions I've come up, as you guys can tell, with the pandemic last year, a lot of our business has changed to remote. And we've been talking about video and photo with the platform a ton. But to be honest, when the pandemic first hit and we're a remote company and we were all, shut in, all wondering what's going to happen, we ran a bit of a community game. And some of the best missions I saw come out of that game were honestly not even photo or video missions. They were just text missions. And we would ask people things like, what are 3 things you're happy for today that are going to happen today? What is the cool recipe that you're going to cook and that you can share with anybody? So that's, I think that's my last kind of best practice tip here, especially for remote games, is that don't underestimate how powerful, the written word can be with these text missions. You're allowed to, when you create a text mission, you are allowed to set the answer to accept everything and have it just show. So again, we're talking about this whole community aspect. When people see that pop up on the activity feed, it can be way more powerful than some of the best photo or video missions you see.
Love that. And one of the ways that our school is actually using GooseChase right now is for a kindness challenge. So January is Kindness Month at our elementary school, and there is a kindness scavenger hunt. Each family signs up as a team, and all the teams are competing against each other. So of course, my competitive nature has kicked in, and I got this guy over here, Wes, to download or to join the game. We already had the app to join the game and immediately participate because there was another family in the lead. But now it's all missions focused on kindness for the whole month. And I just thought that was such a great way to your point, kind of stay positive, stay engaged, and really focus on the good in this world and being kind to each other, which is something that's so necessary right now.
No, that's so cool. And we have those kindness games that are going on. We have a lot of other games that are dedicated to a service mentality. So helping the community. Every mission is aimed at having people volunteer or support those in need. We have games that are focusing on sharing stories and encouraging, mental health. So there's a lot of really powerful things, to Eric's point, that a text-based mission can really allow people to share, but do some good and have a great impact with everyone that's playing.
And any final tips for a school that's looking to start a scavenger hunt?
For me, just have fun first and foremost, right? We talked about a lot of different ways that you can use it. We could talk at length about those, but it all starts with just having some fun. Trying to create a great event and game for the right reasons for your students or your colleagues or the families. So as long as it starts with that, that's a great starting point. And then just get in there. You can create a free account with up to 5 teams if you're a teacher within our platform. So it's a great way just to test it out, see if it will be a fit for you, and then go from there. As you build more games, you get comfortable with it. You'll think about all the different ways that it might be a fit for your classroom. So have some fun with it, test it out, and you can't until you start trying it, you can't really see how much it could work for you for sure.
Yeah, the tip I'll kind of reiterate here is to always add more missions than you think people are going to put in, especially if you get the teachers to offer up a prize for students and there's that competitive nature introduced. You think it's like, man, nobody's going to complete this whole list. Somebody always goes and completes the whole thing and then starts messaging you for more missions. So always add in more content than you think that people are going to be able to complete.
Yeah, and that person would be Deborah.
Yeah. I was just going to say that person would be me, so he knows me well. Well, Eric and Joe, it's been a pleasure having you here today. I think some of the key takeaways, varying your type of missions, creating bonus point missions, creating more missions than you think people will go through. Don't underestimate the power of text missions. Use the mission library, and most importantly, have fun. It's been a pleasure having you both. Thank you. We encourage all of our listeners to jump on and into a scavenger hunt, whether it be with your school or you're creating one yourself. They're a lot of fun. So thanks, guys, and have a great rest of your day.
Make sure to visit our website at themultipurposeroom.school and subscribe to this show. If you like the topics on the show, we share additional resources on our company blog at K12clothing.com and click on blog. Thanks to Squad Locker for making this show possible, and we'll see you next week in the Multipurpose Room.